So, for those who don't know, I have a channel over on Twitch, also called ThinkOnTron, where I play video games live, mostly FNAF games, but in anticipation of the final chapter of Poppy Playtime, I've been going back to play chapters 1 through 4. And while playing the latest chapter, Safe Haven, I said this during the Doctor's boss fight. Like, for as much as I love this Harley as a character, I think he deserves a better boss fight. You see, they just like get up and move randomly. Like there's no like pattern or way to tell which one is gonna move and when. They just get up and start chasing you. And because of the amount of them, that just means that more of them chase you. Like that! The Doctor's always been my favorite character in Poppy Playtime, but I've seen a lot of people disappointed in his boss fight. So I... Sawyer?
Please, call me the Doctor.
Okay, Doctor, what are you doing here?
I thought you'd be happier to see your favorite character. You must know, I've had a lot of time on my hands since Chapter 4. I saw you on your stream, and I heard you had a few complaints.
Now hold on. I'm not making this video to complain about your boss fight or anything like that. I just had some ideas that I thought would show your strengths better.
Well, if you're going to try and show my strengths better, perhaps I should assist. If anyone is going to attempt to add to my methods, they're going to do so under my watch.
Oh, really? Well, I guess it is your boss battle we're talking about. I suppose it's only fair you're here to listen to some of the additions I would add. And before we get started, let me just make it clear, I'm not a game maker. I don't know how easy or difficult this stuff would be to program. I'm not trying to criticize or nitpick anyone by saying these things. In fact, I like a lot of the things that Mob Games did for Harley's boss fight. I think the music is good, the character design is cool, the atmosphere and map are creepy. This is just meant to be a sort of what-if video, things that I personally would think make the boss battle cooler. In fact, it seems like Mob Games was trying to fix Harley's boss fight too, like adding that cutscene at the end.
Once again, the higher-ups overlook the true genius for a mere experiment. Even if it was the bare minimum, at least they attempted to fix these imperfections. So tell me, exactly what kind of changes do you have in mind?
Well, firstly, and probably most importantly, I would add instructions as to what the player is supposed to do. Now, when I say add instructions, I don't just mean telling the player what they're supposed to be doing, but also use it to explain the enemy mechanics, how they function and what they tend to do, because in my version, I would make their mechanics a little more complicated. What I want to primarily focus on for this boss battle is to make it more stealth-focused by showing the mechs searching for the player. Now, to Mob Games' credit, it seems like they tried to do this, but it wasn't executed very well, for reasons I'll talk about in a minute. For my version of the boss fight, I would make it so that only one mech can be active at a time, with the exception being that long hallway sequence where all the mechs activate behind you, and the final cutscene where they all activate at once. What I would do for this boss fight is to make it sort of a red light, green light style gameplay, by having the mechs search for the player. Each mech would be in one of 4 states. Deactivation state, which is when their monitors are off and their bodies don't move. The activation state, indicated by a white eye blinking on the monitor. Searching state, which is when their eye turns yellow and they begin to move. And a chasing state, which is when their eye turns red and they begin to chase the player. One of the main problems with this boss fight is that there's no activation state. The mechs immediately go into their yellow searching state, and because the player doesn't know which mech is going to activate and when, it just results in them getting constantly chased, which is why the stealth in this boss battle wasn't executed well. But by adding an early warning system to the player, letting them know when the mech is about to activate, it allows the boss battle to be more stealth focused, because now the player is forced to wait and hide until the mech stops searching for them, making the fight feel a lot more stealth focused as opposed to just running. So now that we have an activation mode that lets the player know when the mech is going to turn on, what exactly happens when they turn on? Well, let's talk about search mode first, which is when the Doctor's eye turns yellow. For search mode, I would give the mechs a different walking animation. I would give them a more casual walk and make their movements slower, indicating that they're looking for something and not chasing. I would also make it so that they are able to peek behind corners, just to add to the creepiness a little bit, similar to what Mist Delight does in Chapter 3. But while the mechs are in search mode, they won't stray too far from where they started, and if they don't spot the player, they'll do what they do in the original fight, which is walk back to where they started and deactivate. This in turn does 3 things. It makes the battle more stealth-focused, like I mentioned earlier, it makes the boss more intimidating, and it ensures that the player doesn't just run around frantically while constantly being chased by mechs.
Yes, these changes might make my lab more frightening for intruders. However, it's also quite restricting, limiting my movements even further than before. These changes seem to only benefit you so far. Or is that the point of this little presentation?
No, of course not. Actually, I was going to add some benefits to the mech's last mode. Probably the most criticized thing about this boss battle is the walking animation. I've seen people say that it looks too goofy, or that the arms of the mechs are too far apart, making it easily able to clip through the walls or just get stuck on all the other objects. Actually, why do you have them move like that, Dr. Sawyer?
It's been years since I had a proper body. If you think it's easy to walk in a body that's not yours, I know a few experiments that would beg to differ. Perhaps you would like to see a more personal demonstration.
No, I believe you.
So, the mechs stand still in activation mode, slow, casual movements in search mode. So what about the last one? Chase mode, as you called it.
Well, just like in the original fight, when the mech spots you in search mode, they'll immediately go into their red state. Their eye will turn red, and they'll begin to chase the player. But what I would change is that when they start to chase the player, they would actually crawl on all 4s. Their bodies are already super hunched over, with the mech's arms out wide. It would show that the Doctor is growing impatient and is eager to kill the player. And I also think it would be a neat callback to Yarnaby.
Do not compare me to Experiment 1166. I admit I'm more fond of him than the other bigger bodies. But that being said, I'm far from a mindless beast. I was the head of the bigger bodies initiative, and I will be treated with proper respect.
Okay, well, what would you recommend then?
Simple. Make them move faster. Have them run towards the intruder, but just slightly hunched over with only one arm outstretched, inching closer and closer to any unfortunate creature that dared to enter the sanctity of my lab.
Okay. Well, that actually does sound a lot scarier. Thanks, Harley.
Don't get used to my help.
But with them being faster, there also needs to be a way to escape the mechs. So I think I would make some changes to the middle of the map. In the original boss fight, the middle map is a safe spot for the player. Whenever you get into the middle section of the map, the mechs are unable to follow you and walk back to where they started. But it was always kind of weird to me that they just stop chasing you when you get to the middle. I would do one of 2 things. Either 1, force the player to close the gate by taking out the battery before the mech gets to the gate, or, more interestingly, keep the mechanic the same but change the reasoning behind it. The mech can still stop at the gate, but instead of turning around and going back to where it started, it will actually shut down. Because not only would that match up with Harley telling the prototype about their few resources.
Fine, but you have no staff, virtually no test subjects. It's hardly ideal conditions.
But it would also serve as a good explanation as to why the mechs can't go very far, or why all of them don't activate at once. Because they have a limited battery, they can only move so far before having to go back and recharge. But if they spot the player, they will chase them as far as they can, which overexerts their battery. If they run so far that they manage to get to the middle of the map, then their battery will completely drain, causing their screen to shut off and forcing them to stand still. Now, while it will shut down and be still once you get to the middle of the map, it won't stay that way. They will eventually reset to their original position, so that the player can't abuse the draining their battery mechanic. Once the player is a little ways away, where they can no longer see the mech, it would simply despawn from the gate entrance and respawn back to where it originally started. Also, by having the shutdown mech block the way back to where the player just ran from, it forces them to explore other areas of the map that they might not be familiar with, making the boss battle more challenging. Another change I would make is just to simply have less mechs around. I know that would make it sound easier, but with the amount of mechs that there are in the final fight, it just results in the boss fight becoming too crowded, and the mechs constantly getting stuck on each other. And considering I'm trying to make the mechs more dangerous, I think that's another good reason to have less of them.
Yes, I admit I would prefer quality over quantity. But aside from improving the mech's movements, what else have you done to make them more dangerous?
In the actual boss fight, the mechs tend to deal damage rather than actually jump scare you. Instead, they deal slight damage to you and only jump scare you once you've taken enough damage, which makes sense considering, again, there were so many of them in the original fight. But, like Dr. Sawyer said, we're going for quality, not quantity. And because of the decreased amount we have, we're giving each of them an instant jump scare. I would also give the jump scare a different sound. Admittedly, I'm not too sure what that sound would be like, but I imagine either an amplified version of the sound that the mechs make when they chase you, or a sort of echoing sound inspired by the emergency alert system, similar to Siren Head.
I'll admit, your personal interpretation of my final conflict is much more interesting and much more fitting of my potential. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, sorta. That's all I have in terms of the main changes I would make, but I do have some other smaller changes I could add. First thing I would do is to show your main eye at some point on one of the mechs. For example, during his death cutscene, when those two mechs are chasing you, I would change their eyes to be Harley's main eye. Same thing for the mech that's attached to the hook and doesn't move. Also, I think I would just keep that mech there and not show it rising back up into the wall. The other thing I would do is have dialogue that plays across his boss fight, similar to what happens in Doi's boss fight. But I would change it a little bit. Instead of Doi's dialogue, where he repeats the same phrases over and over again, I would make it so that you can only hear each line of dialogue once during the Doctor's boss fight. Which dialogue plays and when would be completely random, except for the times that the player opens a new gate, where I'd have the original Sawyer lines play just like in the actual boss fight. Actually, Sawyer, since you're here, would you mind reading some of the dialogue I made?
Me? Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to do some reciting. What exactly do you hope to achieve? I've been watching you, seeing you struggle. You're put up a fight that you must realize is pointless. Do you truly believe my experiments will repay your kindness by allowing you to live? They will devour every single piece of you. Unity was an amusing tool, but I see more potential in you. He thought he could control me, and the prototype will be the same. But I've gone far beyond their misplaced understanding. What would they have truly contributed to humanity if I had let them be? They would have been completely unremarkable. An ordinary face in the audience of a poor performance. But now, they serve a far greater purpose, one that nobody other than I could have dreamed. We are so close to achieving everything.
Like I said at the beginning, I really like the Doctor, which is why I wanted to see him get a really solid boss fight. Who knows, maybe Mob Games will go back and improve on it one day. And I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Do you think these changes are better, or would you add something different? I'd love to hear what changes you guys would make. But I really hope that Mob Games listens to all our feedback and gives the prototype the final showdown he deserves. And if you want to see me play Poppy Playtime Chapter 5, I'll be playing it on my Twitch channel on the day of release, so I'll see you there. You want the last send-off, Harley? Harley?
I do hope you enjoy your last little venture into the depths of Playtime Co. I look forward to seeing Experiment 1006's demise. Or perhaps it will be yours.
Oh, you're still here? Well, I guess that means you liked the video. So if you want, you can check out some of my other videos. And while you're here, you could even subscribe. That way you'll know whenever I upload another awesome video. And if you don't want to, that's fine too, I guess. In the meantime, stay awesome.